Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a pretty fascinating claim that a whole host of modern scientific discoveries were actually described in detail in the Quran over 1,400 years ago. So, could a 1,400-year-old text really hide modern scientific facts? The source material we're looking at today says absolutely yes. So let's break down how it builds that case. Okay, here's our game plan. We'll start with the core idea itself, then jump into the source's specific examples, from the vastness of space to the world around us and even inside our own bodies. And then we'll see how it all ties together in the final argument. So the argument at the heart of all this is pretty straightforward. The Quran seems to contain scientific details that were just impossible for anyone to know back in the 7th century. The source suggests that this points to an origin that's, well, not human. So how does the source back this up? Well, it starts by asking us to look up at the stars, kicking things off with examples from cosmology. For, centuries, pretty much, forever, the scientific consensus was that the universe was static. It was just there, unchanging. But that whole idea got completely flipped on its head in the 20th century. And this is the verse the source points to. It says, "We built the sky with might, and we are certainly expanding it." Now that last part, expanding it, is what the source really zooms in on, presenting it as a clear, direct statement about the universe getting bigger. And this timeline, this is really the core of the whole argument, isn't it? You see the verse revealed way back around 622 CE. Then you fast forward more than 1,300 years to 1929 when the astronomer Edwin Hubble actually provides the proof. It really makes you ask, how could that knowledge possibly have been in a text so long ago? Okay, so from the vastness of space, let's bring it back down to Earth. Now we're going to look at what the source says about geology and biology right here on our own planet. The source starts with geology, and specifically this idea that we now kind of take for granted, that continents aren't fixed. They're actually moving, slowly but surely, because of plate tectonics. But you gotta remember, for most of history, mountains were the very symbol of something totally permanent and unmoving. But then the source brings up this verse. It says, "You see the mountains and think they are firmly fixed, but they pass away as the clouds pass away." This is interpreted as saying the exact opposite of what our eyes tell us, and instead lining up perfectly with our modern understanding of continental drift. And once again, here's that timeline. It's so central to the argument. The verse is from the 7th century. But Alfred Wegener, he doesn't even propose the theory of continental drift until 1915, and it wasn't really accepted by most scientists until the 1980s. That is a huge, huge gap. Now, this next one is really interesting because the argument shifts from these huge, grand concepts to something tiny. And it's not just about what the words say, but about the actual grammar used to say it. The claim here is pretty specific. In the original Arabic, when the Quran is telling the bees to do their thing, build hives, collect nectar, make honey, it uses female verb forms. And as modern biology tells us, all of that work, it's done by the female worker bees. A pretty neat detail. All right, so we've looked at the cosmos and the natural world. Now the source turns the focus inward to claims about the human body itself. This verse is put forward as a description of embryology, way ahead of its time. It talks about creation happening in 3 veils of darkness. The source interprets this as a reference to the 3 protective layers around a developing fetus: the abdominal wall, the uterine wall, and the amniotic sac. Okay, this next one is probably the most specific and maybe surprising claim the source makes. It connects the entire field of genetics, not just to a general idea, but to a very precise number that it pulls directly from the text. So here's how it breaks down. The source looks at the 18th chapter, verse 65. In that verse, the Arabic letters Dal, Nun, and Aleph, which sound like D, N, A, appear one after the other. Now get this. The birth of modern genetics is widely dated to the year 1865, thanks to Gregor Mendel's groundbreaking work. So you see the link the source is drawing? The verse number 1865 lines up with the year 1865. This is presented as this kind of hidden signature, a numerical link baked right into the text itself. So we've seen all these different examples, from the cosmos to our DNA. What's the big takeaway? What's the final argument the source is trying to make with all of this? Well, the conclusion is this. When you stack up all these examples, cosmology, geology, biology, genetics, it's not just one lucky guess. The source argues that the sheer volume and specificity of these accurate scientific claims makes it really, really unlikely to be just a coincidence. So here's the logical path the source lays out for us. Step 1, there are a bunch of scientific facts in the Quran. Step 2, these facts were absolutely impossible to know back in the 7th century. Step 3, they've only just been confirmed by modern science. And the conclusion? Step 4, this kind of foreknowledge has to point to a source that isn't human, a divine source. And that brings our exploration of the source's claims to a close. It leaves us with a fundamental question, one that you could ask about any ancient text really. Where do we draw the line between discovering knowledge that was always there and simply interpreting an old text through the powerful lens of everything we know today?